Howdy, hi there, friends and neighbors. This is Steve again, reading from my book, Four Views of I. And today's chapter is called Introspection. Four Eyes. Initiate illuminating introspection, shedding light on who, what, and why I am. Pursue a continuous improvement of your individuality. Remember the four views of who you are, and know each is supported by the other three. So, instinct is intellect, intuition, and intention. Intellect is instinct, intuition, and intention. Intuition is instinct, intellect, and intention. And intention is instinct, intellect, and intuition. Getting strength from within. The heart of it, infinity within. If you start at the corners of a tetrahedron and draw a straight line toward the center of the opposite triangle plane, you will see they all connect in the center of the pyramid. This point represents infinite fire, the pyre in the midst. It is the pointer to the infinite, one of whom you are begotten. Meditate on this when you are seeking awareness or answers. Quirky, right, left, up, and down. Since beginning to look at myself as the integration of the four aspects, I see fours in everything, even in quantum physics. I think it's only natural that everything that is reflects as a fractal of the whole. Everything truly is connected, one long imaginary string holding everything together in the great I am. In or out. My mother used to say, in or out, whenever I stood in the doorway deciding whether to go outside or stay inside. Both options are valid. Change it up, go outside and play, or stay inside and play. Just play. Well, everywhere. Integration. Allow me to share an insight received from introspection. The prodigal gang. The prodigal gang. One of Jesus's parables I had trouble with is that of the prodigal son. I shared my story with a group of people setting up online businesses. The struggle I had was because I related to the other brother rather than the prodigal. I went up the next day and shared an epiphany I had after I told the story the first time. Here's a full story from the Bible and my added comments. The story of the loving Father, Luke 15:11 through 32 from the ISV. This is a story that Jesus told his disciples, one of his parables. A parable is a story that carries a lesson. It is in the Bible, so to teach all, and is quite familiar to many. Let's look at what the story teaches us. The story of the younger brother and free will. Then Jesus said, a man had two sons. The younger one told his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So the father divided up the property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered everything he owned and traveled to a distant country. There he wasted all on living wild. After he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went out to work for one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. No one would give him anything, even though he would gladly have filled himself with the husk the pigs were eating. The shininess had worn off. The grass was not green over there. In fact, it was burnt brown. Life was not rosy. In fact, it was detrimental to life. All was not well. He was reduced to feeding unclean animals and longed to eat the slop. People will happily help you spend your money. When you are out of resources, they are out of your life. Don't you hate it when people can say, I told you so? It's fun to say that to others. Okay, prodigal is destitute, exercises free will again. Then he came to his senses and said, how many of my father's hired men have more food than they can eat? And here I am starving to death. I will get up and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against you and against heaven. I don't deserve to be called your son anymore. Treat me like one of your hired men. And then I say, check out my blog at heresyman.com. The youngster came to his senses and realizes that even his servants at his dad's place were treated with respect. He admitted he was wrong. This is big. Look down, or look how long it took for him to get there. So he acted to get out of his rut. He took action. Prodigal returns. So he got up and went to his father. While he was still far away, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him affectionately. Then his son told him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and you. I don't deserve to be called your son anymore." But the father told his servants, "Hurry, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his fingers and sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let's eat and celebrate, because my son was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and has been found." And they began to celebrate. Fully expecting to be tolerated, he was surprised at his father's reaction. It is said the reason the father ran to him and threw his arms around him was to protect him from others. The disgrace this son inflicted on the family by his choice was punishable by death. The father was keeping the neighbors from stoning him. That's intense. The father was not tolerating, but accepting the son. Not only was he accepting him, he was welcoming him back with a celebration. Beyond acceptance, he was celebrating the return. This is the point of the story where most stop. The lesson is that you can always go home, right? The story of the older brother. Now, the father's older son was in the field, and as he was coming back to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called out to one of the servants and asked what was happening. The servants the servant told him, "Your brother has come home, and your father has killed a fatted calf because he got him back safely." This epilogue is most important section to me. How many people even know this bit is there? When they do read this section, do they just gloss over it? A mistake. This is where the real lesson is for the people who choose to do the right thing. Let's look hard at this. The first thing I notice is nobody told the older brother what was going on. He was out doing his daily routine, doing the right thing, when he noticed the party was going on. Notice that he had to ask what was going on. Nobody thought to get a message to him. He was being taken for granted. Yikes. The older brother responds. Then the older brother became angry and wouldn't go into the house. So his father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, "Listen, all these years I have worked like a slave for you. I've never disobeyed a command of yours. Yet you've never given me so much as a young goat for a festival so I could celebrate with my friends. But this son of yours spent your money on prostitutes, and when he came back, you killed a fatted calf for him." I get the anger. Here's the lesson, so pay attention. His dad heard he was outside, refusing to come in, so he went out to see what was up. The older brother was pissed. What the hell? He had worked hard his whole life to do the right thing, and his slacker brother did everything wrong, and he got a full-blown party. Not acceptable. So this is the story for slackers. All the slackers of the world think so and are grateful for it. But I say this parable is about the older brother. It is really for the persistent ones following the rules. They are taken for granted because they are reliable. This is the thanks he gets. Did the father help the older brother? His father told him, "My child, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and has been found." Here it is, the real lesson of the parable. Inheritance belongs to those who persevere, doing the right thing all along. So the payment is there. It is available always. It is his to take. Seriously. He is a member of the name it and claim it gang. All needs are covered, and he is taking that for granted, which it is. It is granted. Okay. If he wants a party, he has the right to throw one himself. Everything is the thanks he gets. Everything. A mighty nice thank you, if you think about it. So you are not a doormat. You are a doorway, a good way of being. The real reason I told this story again to this particular group was I had a breakthrough regarding this. Something had clicked with me, and I could see it really, there really was a message in it. At the end of the day, a group of us went out to dinner. I had come to the conference alone, so I didn't know anybody from the meeting. I sat at a random table with three others who had heard me speak. A bit, I spent a bit of time listening to other gentlemen. I could tell right away he was very active in his church, and he had already shared a lot of photos and videos from such from his travel to Israel. This was punctuated by the fact that he actively sang hymns out loud continuously, a believer and proud of it. We discussed the church he went to, and I responded appropriately by listening rather than bringing up what I really thought. I really am trying to communicate with believers with love and don't volunteer my current position unless asked directly. Our discussion of the prodigal was started by him wanting to know what my issue was with the prodigal son. Even though I knew he had heard me at the meeting, I gave a quick synopsis of what I had said to the whole group previously. I also included my new insight about the servant. I was sure this would give more insight into my issue. See the next section, Epiphany. His position, of course, was that the story is teaching that God will accept the sinner back. That was all. There was nothing else there. It was as if he had heard what I said, brought up the older brother again, and I brought up the older brother again and tried to articulate why it was an issue. I got the impression that he saw it simply as a misunderstanding on my part. He was done with the conversation. I am reminded of two cliches. First, people are only listening for a break in the conversation so they may state their view, not listening first. Second, there are none so blind as those who refuse to see. When I told my story to the group the first time, I spoke of the three members of the story. First, the prodigal father who worked hard, built the estate. Next, the prodigal brother who followed the rules and had full inheritance. Finally, the prodigal son who took a premature, incomplete inheritance and squandered it away. I began to see how each of these members can be modeled. By placing yourself in their shoes, you will gain different perspectives along with the understanding and growth. This makes sense, and it helps me to realize I had associated with each brother at different times in my life. I had been looking at the story from the only one point of view. It was a flat view, and I did not see the same flat view most did. I realize now that a good parable is multidimensional. The number of possible views expands, maybe exponentially, with the quantity of characters. From this point, I started thinking the story as the prodigal gang. If you think about it, each person squandered something. After I had shared this with the group, I woke in the middle of the night thinking about the parable of the prodigal again. As I recounted my recent discovery, I listed out the members mentally. This is when I had an epiphany. There is a fourth part to the prodigal gang, the servants. Ah, the truly ignored, the ones who keep the estate running. I now call those involved in the story the prodigal gang, and we can learn from each of them. We can choose to associate ourselves with any single one of our four characters involved. First, the prodigal father, who worked hard and built the estate. Second, the prodigal brother, who followed the rules and had full inheritance. Third, the prodigal son, who took a premature, incomplete inheritance and squandered it away. And finally, the servants, the truly ignored, who keep the estate running. We can easily see how each model I'm sorry, let me do that again. We can easily see how we can each model each of these members. By placing ourselves in their shoes, we will gain different perspectives, understanding, and growth. What makes this story really ring true for me is the number of characters, 4. In the 4 views of I move past the trilogy of body, mind, and spirit, adding another dimension, time. I have assigned 4 words to each of the aspects of our individuality to represent body, mind, soul, and spirit. The prodigal gang fits nicely with the 4 aspects of an individual I have identified in 4 views of I: instinct, intellect, intuition, and intention. This excites me because I can assign each of the team members to an aspect. It is a connection to the 4 I's. For me, this list makes sense. Instinct, the younger brother, he is going just on instinct. Intellect, the older brother, he is doing the hard work, staying the course, doing it right. Intuition, the servant is the service to others person in this group, working in the background thanklessly. Intention, the father who created the estate and bequeathed it is the one source. It took time for me to reach this epiphany. That 4th dimension is crucial. Thus ends that chapter. So anyway, if you have any comments, if you think I'm really wacky on my view of the prodigal son, let me know. If anything, just comment below and let me know what you think. Thanks. I'll see you with the next chapter tomorrow. Have a lovely